Welcome to Movie Recall. In today's video, we will be going through the 2013 movie Old Boy. It's time to recall, let's get started. Turn on subtitles and spoilers ahead. The movie starts and we see a drunk, obscene, and very rude man named Joe Doucette. The year is 1993 and he ends up forgetting his daughter's birthday, and when his wife calls him and confronts him about it, he feels no remorse over it whatsoever. He goes on to make it abundantly clear to his wife that he does not give a crap about her or their daughter and that he has no obligation towards seeing them. He is an advertising executive, and rather than going back home that evening, he ends up going to a meeting with an important client, and during the meeting, he is again rude. He goes on to make a move on his client's girlfriend, which of course does not sit well with her or her man. The client even goes on to hit him in the face, and that sums up his evening. He is ashamed and his ego is hurt. He gets drunk that night and roams around the street in the town puking here and there. He then goes on to buy a trinket for his daughter as a birthday gift to her. He then makes his way to a bar who is owned by his own friend named Chucky. Chucky comes to the door and asks him what he wants, and he demands that the door be open and he is given a drink. Chucky, however, refuses to let him go inside because the bar is closed. He leaves there after giving some shit to Joe, and as he walks in the streets, he ends up running into a woman. She is nice to him, and the next thing we see, he is waking up in a bed after having done it with the woman whom he met earlier on the street. He makes his way to the shower. He is badly hungover and feels drowsy, but when he is in the toilet, he can hear the shower running. After using the toilet, he looks behind the shower curtain, but there is no woman to be found. He now starts to feel weird and feels like something fishy about this place. He goes back to the room and checks the drawers where he finds plain white clothes. He then goes on to check the door and it is locked. He starts banging at the door and gets panicked, having no idea where he is and what is going on. A small part of the door underneath opens and a tray is thrown towards him. There is food in this tray, and Joe tries to get his head out the window and begs the man out there to let him out. The man, however, pushes him back into the room and locks the small window. He has been given a lot of dumplings to eat that have been brought from a Chinese restaurant. He is also given a bottle of liquor too. He drinks and waits for the person to come back. Days go by just like that. Everything remains the same. He starts thinking that he might have been imprisoned. The food also remains the same, and he has started getting frustrated whenever he sees these dumplings because this is the only thing that he has been getting to eat. He has no idea what to do about it because he has already done all the begging, and of course it does not work. One day he is watching a video of a girl who is wearing a short dress and is giving instructions on how to stay fit. He gets horny and starts touching himself, but this is when fog starts to come out of the vent. As we look on, he goes unconscious from this fog. A man then comes into the room with some equipment and takes his DNA as a sample. In the next scene, we see him watching the TV again, and he sees that his wife has been raped and murdered. On top of that, the news reporter goes on to say that Joe himself is missing too, so his daughter is also up for adoption. The reporter further adds that the police are saying that Joe himself is the one behind everything. We then go on to see that the DNA sample that these people took earlier of Joe, they are the ones who planted this DNA at the crime scene as they are trying to frame Joe for the whole thing. Joe is enraged, he is pissed off, but he cannot do anything about it. He is not guilty for anything, and on top of that, his daughter is out there and could get adopted into a very bad family. Months go by just like that, and Joe cannot do anything about his condition. He now starts to get depressed, and we see blood on his pillow indicating that he is torturing himself. He then goes on to become friends with a white rat that lives in his room. The rat then goes on to give birth to multiple baby rats, and Joe is a little happy about that until one day when he wakes up, the rat is nowhere to be found. He then goes into the main hall where a tray is slid into his room, and when he opens it, he sees that the food is different. As the smoke coming out of the food dies down, he realizes that these are his rat friends, and he is both disgusted and devastated to see that. Time goes by just like that. It seems like he has started to go mad now. He headbutts the mirror on the bathroom wall, and with a pointy piece of glass, he tries to kill himself. However, the white fog comes back yet again, and the next thing we see, he has gone unconscious yet again. When he wakes up, his captors have already tended to his wounds. Years go by just like that, he is still in captivity. He now has long hair and long beard too. He relies on the TV to keep himself updated with what has been going on in the world. One day he gets to learn on the news that his daughter was adopted by a loving family, and she even plays the cello now. He smiles as he sees his daughter playing the cello and seems to be really good at it. Seeing his daughter like that reawakes a ray of hope in him. He starts writing letters hoping that when he gets out of this place, he will give all these letters to his daughter. He then starts working out and stops drinking altogether. He gets very serious about trying to escape this place and decides that he is going to learn how to fight. He goes on to make signs on his body by tattooing himself using the needle and a heater in his room. He marks every year that goes by in that room. He compiles a list of all those who might want to imprison him and writes letters to eventually be given to Mia. It has been almost 20 years since he has been in that room. He starts scraping off the cement from the bathroom tiles to set his escape plan to motion. The next step, he starts taking the bricks off one by one. He keeps doing this, and one day, he tries to get out of that hole. He easily fits in, and when he jumps, he lands into a dark tunnel. He follows the tunnel to get out and realizes that it could lead him out of the room. He heads back to the room to get his stuff and all the letters that he has written for his daughter. When he is about to leave, he sees on TV that his daughter is a big girl now and she is being interviewed by a reporter. He goes on to see his daughter saying that if her dad is still alive, she is willing to forgive him despite the fact that the man killed her mother. This is when the white fog starts to come down from the vents yet again, and Joe is knocked unconscious yet again. Shortly after, Joe is drugged. He wakes up outside in a trunk in a field with a cell phone and a small amount of money. His head and beard have been shaved, and the cell phone that he has happens to have a countdown going on. When he looks around, he realizes that he is in a secluded area, and then he goes on to see a woman holding a yellow umbrella. This is the same umbrella that woman was holding the night he got kidnapped. Joe goes on to follow the woman, and she gets into a playground where boys are playing football. They think that Joe is harassing this woman and stop him. Joe, however, has years of training and goes on to beat the crap out of these boys all alone. He goes on to follow the woman again, and by this time, she has entered a town. She tries to get mixed with a crowd that is there for a mobile medical clinic. He gets into the crowd following the umbrella, but when he gets to the umbrella, he sees that it is now being held by a man. He starts fighting with the man and causes a scene. A nurse approaches him and goes on to ask him if he is okay. She then gives him her card, but he leaves without saying anything to her. He then makes his way to Chucky's bar and goes on to tell him all that has happened to him during the last 20 years. When he is at the bar with Chucky, Joe goes on to receive a call on the phone that has been given to him. When he picks up the phone, the man on the phone turns out to be his captor. He goes on to challenge Joe to find his daughter. Joe is not able to recognize the voice of the man. He is pissed off and asks Chucky to help him track this man as Joe wants his revenge. This is not going to be easy at all because there is a long list of people Joe has screwed over in the past. Joe goes to a room at Chucky's place and tries to conduct his own research. Later, Chucky finds him lying on the floor, and when he checks in on him, Joe is unconscious. The next thing we see, the nurse from earlier named Marie is there, and she tends to Joe, who is still out. As they put Joe into bed, she goes on to tell Chucky that Joe is going to be fine, adding that he is just severely dehydrated. While she is there, she goes on to find his letters, the ones he has written for his daughter. She ends up reading many of the letters and is really touched by how emotional they are. As she reads on, Joe wakes up and goes on to snatch the letters away from her. He gets out of control with anger as he feels his privacy has been violated. Marie goes on to tell him that she believes his story and is willing to help him if he is interested in taking help from her. The next day, he goes out with Marie, and Joe goes to different places to find something that could trace back to the people who held him captive for so many years. He goes to one of Joe's old enemies, but when Joe gets there, he sees that the man is old and he can barely move, so it turns out to be useless. Later, Marie helps him identify a Chinese restaurant that supplied his food while he was held captive. Joe follows a delivery from the restaurant to a warehouse where he was imprisoned and meets Cheney, its owner. Joe tortures Cheney by flaying his neck with a utility knife. Cheney confesses that the stranger arranged for Joe's captivity. Upon returning to Chucky's bar, Joe finds the stranger there with the woman with the yellow umbrella, his bodyguard Hang Bok. The stranger says that they have kidnapped Mia, but he makes an offer if Joe can determine the stranger's identity and the reason for his 20-year captivity within the next 46 hours. He will release Mia, give Joe $20 million in diamonds, release evidence proving Joe's innocence in Donna's murder, and commit suicide. Joe learns that Cheney and his men are seeking revenge by attacking Marie. After racing to her house, he is captured by Cheney. Just as Cheney is about to torture Joe, the stranger calls Cheney and offers to pay him for Joe and Marie's release. Cheney obliges. Using a music recognition app on her phone, Marie determines that the ringtone from the stranger's call is the theme song of Evergreen Academy, a now closed school that Joe attended. Marie visits the school headmistress's home while Joe sneaks in a back door and finds his yearbook where he recognizes a student, Adrian Doyle Price. Joe passes the name to Chucky and hides Marie in a hotel for her safety. There, they also go on to have a wild, steamy hormone sandwich, unaware that the stranger who is actually Adrian is watching them through a hidden camera. Chucky, researching Adrian on the internet, learns everything about Adrian's sister Amanda and leaves Joe a message informing him. However, Adrian intercepts and deletes the message before Joe can hear it and garrots Chucky to death with piano wire for insulting Amanda. Marie and Joe enter the Evergreen Academy grounds and find the school's records regarding Adrian and Amanda. Joe recalls bullying Amanda and seeing Amanda have a wild, steamy hormone sandwich with an older man revealed to be her own father in the school's greenhouse. When others at Evergreen learned what happened, Adrian's father moved the Price family to Luxembourg, where he later murdered his wife and Amanda and attempted to murder Adrian before killing himself. Back at the car, they find a package with Chucky's tongue inside. Joe makes Marie promise to let him go after Adrian on his own. Joe goes to Adrian's penthouse, kills Hang Bok by slitting her throat, and confronts Adrian. He tells Adrian what he learned about Amanda and Adrian's father, and Adrian congratulates him for answering the questions correctly. Adrian, who believes his father's abuse was an expression of love, blames the destruction of his family on Joe, who revealed their secret by telling everyone at Evergreen what he saw in the greenhouse. Adrian gives Joe the diamonds and evidence and escorts him to the sets used to fabricate the media watched by Joe in captivity. Adrian taunts Joe by questioning why he was released at all and shows the interview with Mia was a setup. The girl, now a woman, was a paid actress. He reveals that Marie is actually Joe's own daughter, Mia, and that he wanted Joe to know what it felt like to lose everything. Adrian then shoots himself in the mouth, killing himself. Horrified, Joe writes Marie a letter saying they can never see each other again. He leaves her most of the diamonds, using the rest to pay Cheney to return him to the captivity of the hotel room, presumably for the rest of his life, and with that, the movie comes to an end. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and click the bell icon to get new movie recaps.